The GarthCast, a podcast covering Garth Brooks, the news, song and album reviews, Garth Brooks covers by other artists, and more. Keep believing. Welcome to the GarthCast for today, April 15th, 2021. On the GarthCast this week, Garth Brooks' self-titled debut album was released 32 years ago this week. Garth will be returning to the concert stage at Cheyenne Frontier Days to help celebrate the 125th anniversary of the Cheyenne Frontier Days rodeo. Tickets will go on sale Thursday, April 15th. Our normal Inside Studio G recap, and 2 Garth Brooks covers that I hope you will find as amazing as I did. Garth Brooks' self-titled debut album was released on April 12th, 1989. From theboot.com comes an article entitled Garth Brooks' self-titled album debuts, all the tracks ranked. Despite a varied catalog featuring quite a few twangy odes to the past, some old souls dismiss Garth Brooks as a pop act. To shut down such limiting notions about Brooks, look no further than his debut album. The now 32-year-old Garth Brooks album, released on April 12, 1989, honors tradition while pushing 80s country nostalgic bent to a new, fiscally successful decade. There's the tale of small-town eccentric Cowboy Bill, the legend-launching single If Tomorrow Never Comes, and a number of old-school country gems. The 10-song collection is without a single dud, which makes picking its best songs a difficult task. The Boot article goes on to rank all 10 selections on the original Garth Brooks album from 10 to 1. Here are their rankings of the 10 selections from the original Garth Brooks album. Number 10, Nobody Gets Off in This Town. Number 9, they rank as Alabama Clay. Number 8, Cowboy Bill. Number 7, Not Counting You. Number 6, I've Got a Good Thing Going. Number 5, Every Time That It Rains. Number 4, I Know One. Number 3, If Tomorrow Never Comes. Number 2, Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old. And the number 1 song theboot.com ranks from the debut Garth Brooks album, The Dance.
Every night she walks the beaches of Cheyenne.
Get your concert legs ready to go and get fired up for a chance to see Garth Brooks live, as Garth will return to play the 125th edition of Cheyenne Frontier Days, the rodeo held every year on the last full week in July in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The last time Garth Brooks played the annual Cheyenne Frontier Days rodeo was 1996. It was his 3rd appearance at the event, and he marked the event's 100th anniversary. Garth's set included a guest appearance by rodeo legend and country music entertainer Chris Ledoux, who is set to be honored posthumously at this year's event with the unveiling of a bronze statue in Frontier Park. In fact, the entire Frontier Days 2021 is dedicated to Chris Ledoux, and Garth has been confirmed to open Cheyenne Frontier Days on July 23rd with a show starting at 7 p.m. Tickets will go on sale Thursday, April 15th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and will cost anywhere between $48 and $94. I believe there may be rooftop tickets available as well for $150. Garth's opening act and support, if you will be Chris Ledoux's own son, Ned Ledoux. I would look for them to have a good time honoring Chris's memory and the importance he had to the Cheyenne Frontier Days rodeo. It should be an amazing, wonderful time, and should things fall my way, I will be there as Garth Brooks in Cheyenne Frontier Days, only an hour and a half away from me. Not something you can miss if possible. Update. Just a brief update. Tickets went on sale this morning and are already sold out. However, I was able to get tickets to the show, so hopefully the GarthCast will have a somewhat live recap of the concert come July. Next up on the GarthCast, it's time for our weekly Inside Studio G recap. This week's Inside Studio G aired on April 12th, 2021. It clocked in at 33 minutes and 21 seconds. Starts off with Garth welcoming people to the show. As he said, he, quote, came in straight off the farm, unquote. He was dressed in overalls and a t-shirt with a hat, not his normal hoodie and jeans type of outfit. They need to talk about opening up, about how if you want to come to the shows, what you should do to protect yourself and others. They're having real discussions about resuming the stadium tour. He said there's going to be some on sales coming up for tickets before we can blink. If the flag drops and they go, it's going to be more like the comeback tour as far as being busy, but this time on a stadium level. Garth's trying to make sure everyone, that's the band, the crew, the fans, everyone totally is safe. The Sirius XM virtual Friends in Zoom Places event with Garth and hosted by Stormy Warren will air on the Garth channel for the first time on April 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 4 hours long, but they're going to cram it down into 1 hour. The stuff that didn't make the 1 hour might be aired somehow on the Garth channel. It'll air various times after its first airing, but this time on April 26th will be the first time that it is aired. The questions asked this week. First question, the song Night Rider's Lament isn't in the written section of the anthology. Is there some reason it was left out? Garth looked rather surprised at this one. He didn't know. He picked up a copy of the anthology, looked through it, and asked how come nobody's pointed it out yet. The books have been out for about 2 to 3 years. He talks a little bit about the song, how he first heard it with Jerry Jeff Walker's version, but he will go to work on it and come up with some fabulous story as to why it's not in there. He talks a little bit about Pat Quigley coming to him and saying, hey, let's put out the first 5 or 6 CDs in a box set and then go to retail and do it at a price of $29.99. How do you make money on it? He questioned at that point. Pat said volume. Garth responded, have you talked to retail about it? And Pat said, I already have 2 million boxes ready to go if you want to do it. That story's in Anthology 2, so maybe Night Rider's Lament was on that version of the chase, and maybe they can stick it in the second anthology to make up for it. And then he kind of kids with Samantha about how that got by her. The second question, does this, that means the difficulty of streaming concert specials, apply to being able to purchase digital concert specials on like Amazon Prime? Basically, does the difficulty of having to deal with rights, fees, and royalties and all that prevent concert specials from being streamed, does that apply to purchasing the specials? Garth says he doesn't know. He means like, hey, we have them and maybe we should put them out because Central Park and Ireland, he talks a little bit about Ireland being the most him and Central Park just being a place where he was scared to death. So he wants to check it out and get back to him. Third question, how did you manage your studies along with track and field during your time at university? Did you find it difficult to balance everything? Garth responds about how he sacrificed being a good athlete so he could sacrifice being a good student. He wasn't good at either one of them. Balancing stuff wasn't really his thing, but he talked about being 18, how you can really balance things anyway. You get to learn a lot about different people, though, and getting to see different perspectives, and it was a good chance for him to broaden his horizons. The fourth question, did you know you can reuse a 1993 calendar this year? Will you add calendars to the Garth store? Garth responds, does anyone use calendars still? He interacts a little bit with Hashtag and Sam about that. He says he'll check, but he just doesn't really know. He's surprised that calendars would do anything. He kind of thinks smartphones have taken everything over. Fifth question asked, did you and your mom ever bond over any particular musical artist? Garth says yes. His mom loved Mahalia Jackson and Pearl Bailey, so they bonded over that music a lot. And since he was the last kid at home during elementary school and the last kid to go to college, he was always kind of in a situation where his mom and him could build a whole life together listening to her music. Then he mentions his dad's music, but his mom ran the day, so he got to learn a lot about Mahalia Jackson and Pearl Bailey. Sixth question asked, it's an early, but the countdown was started. They were saying it was, at that point, 12 hours and 15 minutes until Inside Studio G. What about the anniversary gift that Trisha gave Garth? They were waiting for that story. Garth basically punts on the question and passes it on to Trisha, saying she should probably tell that story and they should do it on the Inside Studio T that is coming up. Seventh question asked, do you have any cassette tapes of your favorite artist? Garth kind of responds, no.
as he changed everything over to CDs, but he probably bought 7 or 8 each of the first 3 albums George Strait released because you just would wear them out. So he mentions wearing out CDs, and I assume at that point also wearing out cassette tapes. Then he mentions briefly 8-track tapes, and then how at that point you're talking about Styx and Bob Seger and those kind of people. The 8th question asked, what do you remember most about your debut album party? And they were referencing the fact that Allie Colleen had just had her debut album party. Garth talks about today, on the day that the show was broadcast, being the anniversary of his debut album coming out. He talks about Much Too Young being the first single, mentions how he really wanted to call the album Randy Travis, and then he mentions that they shipped a huge number of albums, and he said a number like 20,000 is all. They also talked about radio stations having George Strait, having Clint Black, so it was hard to get airplay, and he basically rehashes a little bit about the debut of the album itself, but he doesn't remember ever having an album release party. He doesn't think he had one. He does tell a funny story about bringing the CD home for the first time. He said he was all excited because he'd gotten the CD for free, but he got it home and realized he didn't have a CD player, so this free CD from the record company ended up costing him $150 to $160. The 9th question asked, they recently watched Frequency and your song When You Come Back to Me Again, and they seem to remember in an interview where Garth had mentioned that he originally pitched a different song for the movie, and they had asked, what else do you have? Is this something that really happened, and if so, did you ever record the original song that you pitched? Garth mentions he's going to defer to Jenny Yates because she has a really good memory about this, but he did say he took in 2 songs he thought. He played them both. They didn't ask about him having anything else. He played them both, and the guy that he was playing them for mentioned the one with the ship and the ocean, could he play that one again? The 10th question asked, not really a question, more of a little bit of gushing over all things Chris Gaines. The 11th question asked, are there songs from years ago that portrayed a certain point of your life at that time that you can't bring yourself to sing now? Or songs that didn't have a special meaning to them that do now? Garth mentions he talks about it a little bit in the second anthology. He mentions how they cut It's Midnight Cinderella on Fresh Horses, and they were going, we shouldn't be doing this. Everybody was saying, you shouldn't be doing this. There were some lyrics in there that he knew he would never sing live, ever. And Garth has never sang that song live in a concert ever. And according to Garth, he won't. The 12th question asked, The Night We'll Only Know seems to have the feel and subject matter similar to Dan Fogelberg's Tucson, Arizona, Gazette. Was that an influence when you were writing it? Garth said no, he can't really draw the 2 songs together, but he's a huge Dan Fogelberg nut, so if he'd heard songs like Nexus that had a huge influence on him, songs like Phoenix off of the album Phoenix, talking about it being a big influence on his music, and he mentions again how he loves Dan Fogelberg. Garth did play a little bit of a snippet of Tucson, Arizona on the guitar at this point. The 13th question asked, will Chris Gaines be a part of Anthology 2? Garth responds no, because Chris has his own story to tell. There won't be an anthology based around Chris Gaines, but there will be an entire history around him with music, so that will take a little bit of time to get out. The 14th question asked, not really a question, mentioning Garth showing a picture of a lady's tattoo and her license plate. The 15th question asked, what is your favorite lyric or verse of a song you have written? Garth talks about having talked about this one before, and then he mentions Thicker Than Blood off Scarecrow and the lyric, why can't we see the walls we can't see through? He also mentions She's Every Woman, where she's everything I want to do again. He mentions the song That'll Wind, they're finally where their hearts have always been. And of course he also mentions Bellawood, where the line, heaven's not beyond the clouds, it's just beyond the fear. The 16th question asked, again, not really a question, more of a plug for Garth to have a voice on the Alexa device. The 17th question asked, what cover song is a favorite of yours to perform? Garth talks about probably it being American Pie. He mentions American Pie, James Taylor, he doesn't know. It's kind of a tough question to answer, Bob Seger, but Seger's got like 3 or 4 songs that you could play. He mentions Billy Joel the same way. He mentions George Strait. If you get to play The Fireman or Amarillo by Morning, you're a lucky guy. He mentions how they've kind of turned the cover song, or their cover version of Fishin' in the Dark by Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, into a concert standard. Samantha asks Garth about the ladder in the pictures from one of the last Ask Garth questions, and she gets the story about Garth jumping onto the ladder one time and missing the ladder, and the crew putting an outline of his body with a headset mic and the chalk outline the next day at the bottom of the ladder. Garth retouches on the COVID situation and how they're going to be mentioning the need to be safe and being responsible, and then they say their goodbyes.
Finally, on the GarthCast today, a selection of Garth Brooks covers celebrating the original released debut album by Garth in 1989. First up will be Brent Mainier singing Not Counting You. Then we will have Jim Gegner singing I've Got a Good Thing Going. Links for all videos will be in the show notes to this episode, as well as can be found on the video edition of the GarthCast, which will air soon on the GarthCast YouTube channel.
Until next time for the GarthCast, keep believing.
When loving turns to parting, I'm always the first to leave. 'Cause when it comes to heartaches, I'd rather give than to receive. I've never cried myself to sleep just praying I'll get through. I've never lost a love, not counting you. Not counting you, I've never had a heartache. Not counting you, I never have been blue. There's no exceptions to the rule. I've never been nobody's fool. I've never lost a love, not counting you. I've never got down on my knees to ask the Lord above if He could only bring me the one I'm dreaming of. Begging to be taken back and swearing I'll be true has never crossed my mind, not counting you. Not counting you, I've never had a heartache. Not counting you, I never have been blue. There's no exceptions to the rule. I've never been nobody's fool. I've never lost a love, not counting you. There's no exceptions to the rule. I've never been nobody's fool. I've never lost a love, not counting you. No, I've never lost a love, not counting you.
One, two. She swears there's nothing wrong, but something's missing. She's never been much good at telling lies. You can hear the sounds of leaving if you listen. This may be California, but Oklahoma's in her eyes. And I've got a good thing going. It's plain to see she's tired of hanging on. Yes, It's killing me that she's as good as gone. By now she must be tired of always giving, and tired of what she's getting in return. I guess Oklahoma's more her style of living, 'cause I can see her heart is hidden across some bridge I thought she'd burn. And I got a good thing going. It's plain to see she's tired